Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started.
Hello, women, wine, and world dominators. Happy Thursday. Here we go live. Today we are talking about a graceful end to holiday overeating. And yes, this is a group for female entrepreneurs and women in leadership. And what does one have to do with the other? I'm going to tell you it has everything to do with each other. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. One of the biggest, what I call confidence crushers, right? The thing that really crushes our confidence is when we do not feel good in our own skin. And when we cannot trust ourselves with food. Oh my God, you guys, the issue of trust with food is huge in our community as women, first of all, but then also as female entrepreneurs. Not being able to trust yourself with food means that there is somehow inherently some part of yourself that you don't trust. And guess what? To be the CEO of a really highly successful company, you got to have your own back. You got to be able to trust yourself. And if you can't even trust yourself around some pumpkin pie, how are you going to trust yourself to run a multi-6 or 7-figure business? Not to mention that over the holidays, when we are anxious, right? We are anxious specifically about how we're going to behave with food and the impact that that's going to have on our bodies come January. And this is why, January is such a big month for the diet industry, because so many people have they've overeaten their way through the holidays. They've had their fill, quote unquote. And now they're like, I gotta fix this. And I will tell you, there is nothing that's going to start your 2025 off stronger and faster than if you do not have to spend any of your precious female mental real estate worrying about some new freaking diet that you're going to be starting and counting some calories or carbs and buy a bunch of groceries that you may or may not end up eating and learning some new plan and tracking some new shit, right? Imagine if you could start January with none of that. And instead, you are just hitting the ground running with your Q1 goals, which is what it should be, right? For female business ballers, which is what we are. So, okay, enough said about why we're talking about this today. Let's jump in. So many of us, right, as we start the holiday, as it's like this thing. And by the way, I'm recording this on Halloween. Can we just talk about Halloween for a second? Like, a lot of us have already gotten into the Halloween candy. We're already feeling sick from it potentially, or we know that it's coming tonight. Tonight, I am going trick-or-treating with my 10-year-old and family in Buffalo. And it's going to be a fun, wild party. And all of the adults are going to be walking with their, adult beverages while the kids run around, on these total crazy sugar highs. And there is going to be such a possibility for, eventually after you've had a few glasses of, whatever you're drinking in your travel mug while you're trick-or-treating, eventually those adult hands end up in the, candy bags, and we're suddenly unwrapping wrappers and eating all the things. No big deal, right? This is harmless. This is innocent. This is not a big deal. But for so many of us, it's causing a great deal of anxiety. We are anxious before we even eat the thing because we're anxious that we're gonna want to eat the thing. We're anxious about feeling the urge, wanting the thing, right? And then we're anxious when we're eating the thing because subconsciously we're now worried that we are now somehow betraying ourselves by eating this thing and that we're going to gain weight and we're going to have trouble stopping and we're going to have to go on a diet in January. And so for a lot of us, we'll push the thinking out, right? We'll be like, just don't think about it. And we end up eating more when we do that, right? When we're in denial, or we kind of perseverate on the fact that we're eating the thing, which also can drive us to eat more. Overeating during the holidays, not only is we're kind of hardwired to overeat the foods that we tend to have around us during the holidays, but it's also totally socially acceptable, right? everybody does it. Everybody's overeating. Everybody's uncomfortable. Everybody's doing it. But the thing is they're not. Not everybody's doing it. And also, it doesn't have to be that way. You deserve to be free from food anxiety. You deserve to be free from holiday eating anxiety. And I will say to you guys that I am going to be doing a live in the month of November about relationships, because holidays bring up lots of relationship stress. We see people that maybe we don't normally see around, and that can also drive eating, which also drives low confidence in women. So we're tackling that up in here this month. So FYI, that's coming down the pike. But for right now, we're talking about food. So there's kind of three groups of us, I think, when it comes to holiday food anxiety. The first is the group that's like, oh, well, F it. Like, I'm not even thinking about it. I don't care. Holidays are not a time to quote unquote diet. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to worry about it. The second group is the group that's like already on a diet, that's worried that the holidays are totally going to ruin their diet. And then the third group is the group that's maybe not on a diet, but is still worried that they're going to gain weight over the holidays and none of their clothes are going to fit in January and they're going to need to do something different or not at all and just feel bad. Most likely you fit into one of those three groups. And either way, all three of those groups suck. Even the group that's like, oh, well, F it, it's not the time to diet. This is what I hear all the time. I'm just going to enjoy the holidays and worry about it in January. Here's what I want to ask you. Are you really enjoying the holiday? Like, really? Are you really enjoying the holiday? Because I would be willing to bet money that you are actually not really enjoying the holiday because you have this, this like, what's the word? This underlying crappy feeling that you are setting yourself up to feel bad later. And even if you deny it, you're still setting yourself up to feel bad later. And there are people who are exceptions to this rule. There are people who are like, no, I just go through the holidays, I have fun, and I'm done with it. But most likely that's not you because you're watching this live. So let's dive into I promised you guys that I was going to tell you exactly how to end overeating in a graceful way. The first thing I want to say before I dive into these tools and strategies is, for those of you who are thinking you're going to start a diet in January, I would really, really love to invite you to join the Fempire now. Why now? Guess what? We're not going to put you on a diet over the holidays. But guess what will happen? You will not gain weight over the holidays unless you want to. That's totally your prerogative. But in the Fempire, I specifically teach a method of how to eat and enjoy everything that you love over the holidays without gaining a bunch of weight and still having your pants fit in January. And you're not going to start a diet in January because you're in the Fempire. And in the Fempire, we lose weight from a place of love, not from a place of dieting. And we lose weight while losing all of the mental real estate that you're currently using counting calories and carbs. So a lot of people think I'm going to wait till January. Don't wait till January because you've done more quote unquote damage by the time we get to January. And people think I don't want to start now because I want to quote enjoy the holidays. I promise you, this is my personal guarantee to you. If you join the Fempire now, you will actually enjoy the holidays more than if you join the Fempire in January and you wait. Because you will be walking through the holiday season with all of the anxiety, whether it's on the surface or under the surface. You are going to have that food anxiety over the holidays that you could totally bypass if you just join the Fempire now. For those of you who don't know, the Fempire is my group program that teaches women how to 100% release unwanted weight, end their struggle with food and weight, and live at their natural weight with minimal effort. That is what we do in the Fempire with lots of support and love. And you could start that now, and you're going to have a way better holiday than if you start it in January. So just saying, if you want to do that, you can go ahead and drop in the chat the word Fempire, or you can shoot me a DM. Okay, so here is what I'm going to give you for ending your holiday overeating habit, but in a way that's really, really graceful. I have so many notes here, you guys. I always say I tend to be a bit of a fire hose. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to hop on. I'm going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in this short period of time, something that you can really use to guide you through the holiday season. So the first thing I need you to know and understand is there are 4 reasons that we overeat in the first place. 4 reasons. One of them is cultural, and I just mentioned that. We have totally culturally normalized overeating over the holidays. So just know that there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but just know that you're contending with that, right? You're contending with something that your brain is going to rationalize and justify in a really, really heavy-handed way because you have all of this evidence that this is what everybody else is doing, right? And everybody else is starting a diet in January, or for a lot of my clients, it's not fair. I always talk about my sister, right? She's the skinny sister. She could eat whatever and not gain weight. She and I are 2 different people. Same parents, same upbringing, 2 different people. So even if your brain is justifying it, we still have to contend with the fact that just because this is culturally normal doesn't mean that it's serving me, doesn't mean that it's serving my body, right? So that's first, is cultural. Second is we overeat for psychological reasons. I cannot get into all of this right now, obviously, in this short live, but this is something that I specifically teach in the Fempire. We are psychologically hardwired to want to eat super high calorie, not that I give a shit about calories, but super high calorie, sugary, energy dense foods. And guess what? Energy dense foods come in the form of fat and sugar, or high calorie foods like bread and butter and cheese and spinach dip. And you guys know what I love? I love pumpkin cake or whatever with cream cheese frosting. Oh my God, girl. I am hardwired to want that. I'm a human being. I'm hardwired to want that. So the second reason we overeat is psychological. The third and fourth, I'll just say, is neurological. So there's actually some wiring in our brain that keeps us wanting to eat super yummy foods. So again, you're contending with your own biology, right? Your own brain here. Right? It's not you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that it's you. It's how you're wired, right? And then the last one is hormonal. And I'm not talking about menopause, right? I'm talking about there are actual hormones involved in cueing our hunger, in cueing our satiety. And then you can pile onto that a bunch of perimenopausal or even pre-menopause, period stuff. There is so much we're contending with. And this is why, here's what I want to say to you. I promise you there is a solution to all 4 reasons we overeat, way more than I can give you here, but I'm going to give you what I can today. If you want the solution to all 4 of those reasons, you need to get on a call with me and see if the Fempire is a good fit for you. Link is in the comments. Okay. So understanding the 4 reasons that we overeat to begin with, what I want to give you today is I want to give you some psychological hacks, some rewiring that you can do of your own brain. And you could start this now, and you will set yourself up for so much more success in the long run. And it's graceful and it's beautiful. So here's how it goes. I've taught this concept before. So if you've followed all of my work, which I know some of you have, you may have heard this before, but it's so worth hearing again. We tend to eat and overeat, specifically during the holidays for the sake of this conversation. We eat and overeat for pleasure because it tastes good, right? And it does. Pumpkin, cake, I keep saying pumpkin cake, but you know what I'm talking about, pumpkin bread. You know what I mean? It's all dense and gooey and delicious. And you guys, you could put cream cheese frosting on pretty much anything and I will eat it like a shoe. Do it. I'm eating it. I love it, right? So, see, now I even lost my train of thought because I'm thinking about pumpkin cheesecakey stuff. Anyways, pleasure. Taking a bite of yummy, yummy holiday dessert is pleasure. We are not pretending that it's not. It tastes effing delicious. Our brain is hardwired to register that this tastes delicious and we should eat more of it. It's called dopamine, you guys. And our brains love it. Your brain loves it. My brain loves it. Maybe you don't like the pumpkin cream cheese stuff, But there's something, right? Maybe you're a mashed potatoes person, or you should just drop in the comments. If you're watching this live, I know a lot of you watch the replay. What is your thing? Maybe you've got multiple things, but like, what is your thing that you love? I love spinach dip here. I even made a note. I love special holiday cocktails. I love eggnog, spiked, of course. I love certain holiday cookies. I love, in my family, we make for Thanksgiving, we do a Sicilian stuffing instead of a regular American stuffing, but I like both. So there's so many yummy, yummy things. Fettuccine Alfredo, which is what my dad makes at Christmas, like homemade pasta, right? He makes it with my son. Whole thing, right? So good, so delicious. Loving all this stuff. All right. So we're hardwired to want to eat that stuff. It is real pleasure when you put it in your mouth and you're tasting it. You're like, oh my God, so good, right? We all know that feeling. That's called pleasure, you guys. Now, here's what I want you to do. For so many of us, our, like the pinnacle of pleasure for us is found in food. I'm going to say that again. The pinnacle of pleasure for so many of us is found in food. For so many of us, we are leading lives where the best thing that happens to us all day is, I always talk about the Trader Joe's dark chocolate covered peanut butter cups, which is what it used to be for me. Or the best thing about the holiday is the food. If that's you, then by the way, you're just like I used to be. And I totally get it. I lived my entire life up until I was 39, where when I would think holidays, I would think food, right? It's what it's about. And the thing is food does play a really important role in a holiday celebration. It does. We're not pretending that it doesn't, but it's just that it's not the thing. Like the holidays are not just about the food. Although if you were talking to my brain would be like, yes, it is. It's all about the food, right? So what happens is for so many of us, we are deriving the majority of our pleasure from food. But guess what? Remember I told you that one of the reasons we overeat is for psychological reasons. We are hardwired to seek pleasure. I'm going to say it again. We are hardwired to seek pleasure. So because of that, we actually need pleasure. It's not optional. But so many of us are running ourselves ragged. We are spread way too thin, right? We are doing all the things. We are running businesses. We are working on our own personal development. We have families. We have children. We have aging parents. We have cars that need to be serviced. We have leaks in our roof. We have all kinds of things that we are managing all the time that are not pleasure. I might love my family, but I also have to manage this family. And managing a family is not pleasure, right? It's work. It's hard work. And for those of us who are business owners, we are so committed to our businesses that we can work and work and work and work and work and not even realize that we are totally burning the candle at both ends, right? I know you all know all about this, burnout. So what ends up happening is we haven't created time and space. We have not prioritized pleasure. And here's where that bites us in the butt. That bites us in the butt because remember, we are hardwired to seek pleasure. So if you are not actively, intentionally infusing not just your week, not just the weekend, but your days, your actual days. If you're not actively infusing your days with real pleasure, not false pleasure, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if you're not actively infusing your day with real pleasure, your brain is going to seek it out one way or the other. And guess what your brain's going to do? It's going to look for the fastest, least amount of effort way to get some pleasure quick. Because guess what? You just burned yourself out all day long. I mean, I'm speaking from experience here. You burned yourself out all day long. Now it's 6 o'clock, 6:30. You still got to make dinner. You still got to do X. You still got to do Y. You haven't had any exercise. You need to walk the dog. You need to do all these things are happening. And your brain is like, oh, hell no, we need some pleasure up in here. We're hardwired to seek the pleasure. So what does it do? It's going to find pleasure in the highest dose it can get in the quickest amount of time possible. And that, my friends, in the modern world is going to come in the form of food or booze or both, right? Like you have pleasure literally at your fingertips in your pantry and really high doses of pleasure. Like M&Ms your brain is going to love some M&Ms, right? For me, it was the dark chocolate covered peanut butter cups. But before before I got to the dark chocolate covered peanut butter cups, you better believe that I had had a couple glasses of Chardonnay. I had had some cheese and crackers. Like I had had all these things, chips. I love potato chips. I had had all these things because my brain, it's not optional. It needs pleasure. Am I making myself clear? I think I'm repeating myself a lot because I really want you to get this part. Your brain needs pleasure. And so if it needs pleasure, it's going to find the pleasure in it. If you haven't planned the pleasure, it's going to get it one way or the other. So what happens is food becomes our, the pinnacle of pleasure for us. It's the only way that we really know how to get it. And then once you've done that over and over and over and over again, now you've created a habit where now your brain identifies end of day with eating all the things or weekends. This is why I did a live in here once, I think. Did I do it? On why we tend to lose it on evenings and weekends is because, we've deprived ourselves of pleasure, real pleasure all day long. And then your brain's like, well, watch me now go get some, right? In the form of food, because it's fast and quick. So how do we change this? Well, what I need you to know first and foremost is that we all are overeating. There's 3 different types of overeaters. And I have a quiz on my website that you can find out which type you are. It's free. You can go to leahpinelli.com and just click on take the quiz. The first type of overeater that exists is what's called a biochemical overeater. And what I mean by that is you are eating foods that are actually causing a chemical reaction in your body, which all foods do, but this particular chemical reaction, this particular response your body has actually works to increase your hunger and increase your cravings. So depending on what you're eating and when you're eating it, you are actually on a totally chemical level increasing hunger and increasing cravings just by eating certain foods, right? So you have to actually know what those foods are, and you have to know how to stop eating them if you are ever going to solve that problem. And when I say stop eating them, I don't mean stop eating them completely. It's just stop eating them to the point where they are problematic. Again, this is something that I teach specifically and personalized just for you in the Fempire. You can join me there. Click on the link in the comments if you're interested. The second type of overeater there is emotional overeaters. And everybody eats for emotional reasons, but not all of us are emotional overeaters, right? There is a difference. Something is chiming at me. It's weird. I've never heard that noise before. So that type of overeater is eating because she is stressed, she's bored, she's frustrated, she's disappointed, she's happy, she's excited. We can overeat pretty much with any emotion. But the point is that the driver of eating is emotional. It's not actual hunger. And again, we solve for that in the Fempire. And then the third type of overeater is a combination, right? And that's most of my clients we're a combination of both. It's what we're eating combined with why we're eating. And when you solve for those two things, you stop overeating. And this is why I always say this is how you find your natural weight with minimal effort, is because when you stop overeating for biochemical and emotional reasons, your weight will drop to your natural weight and you don't even really have to do anything. Like there's no effort involved because you've solved the root of the problem, right? The problem isn't that you have no willpower and you have no self-control and you have no discipline and you're some like sorry sap. That is definitely not the problem. If you're in this group, you're a female business owner or leader, you are not a sorry sap, right? You are a highly ambitious woman and you just nobody has ever explained to you the biochemical reasons that you're overeating and how to end that in combination with how to stop the emotional overeating in a way that actually feels good and doesn't feel like a bunch of deprivation. So let's get to what you're going to do about it. The tool that I want to give you today is a tool that first you have to understand the difference between real pleasure versus false pleasure. So real pleasure, here's the definition for you. Real pleasure is anything that you do that has a net positive effect. So what I mean by that is if I am hungry and I am in the mood for something sweet, sweetish, right? But like if I don't want something savory, I love to, I have so many photos of my yogurt bowls. I love yogurt and I love berries and I love walnuts. And I make these like yummy yogurt bowls, right? I love them. I look forward to eating them every day. And that is a real pleasure for me because it actually tastes so delicious to me. I love it. And I feel good after I've eaten it. There's lots of good, probiotics in there that are great for my digestive system. There's protein in there. It fuels me. It nourishes me. The berries have tons of fiber. The walnuts have omega-3s. Like, so good, right? So this is a net positive effect. There's nothing really negative at all about eating my yogurt with berries. Or another example I'll give you of a real pleasure is I like to work out, right? So right now I've been doing CrossFit. In the past, I've done Bikram yoga. Here's the thing is that I'm using those two as an example because those are both considered kind of extreme types of workout. Bikram yoga is that yoga that you do for 90 minutes in a 105-degree room, Fahrenheit. And CrossFit is lots of heavy lifting and things like that. These two types of exercise are often not at all pleasureful in certain moments, right? When I'm like trying to, curl, do bicep curls with a really, really heavy weight. It's not pleasure in that moment. It's painful and I want to stop, right? Or in Bikram yoga, it's always in half moon where I'm like, what am I doing here at 105 degrees? Get me out of here, right? It doesn't mean that the entire workout is pleasure. It doesn't mean that the entire experience is pleasure, but it's a net positive effect. Net positive effect. And so what that means is overall, I'm getting more benefit from it, far more benefit than any kind of cost, right? Now let's look at false pleasure. And so I'd love it if you would comment in the comments, by the way, what are your real pleasures? What are some real pleasures for you? Is it CrossFit and Bikram like me, or is it something else? The yogurt with berries is another great example of real pleasure. Walking my dog, real pleasure, right? Sometimes it's a pain in the ass, but ultimately once I get out there, I'm always so happy that I'm out there and it feels so nice to be outdoors. False pleasure. A false pleasure is anything that feels like pleasure in the moment. So let's go back to that pumpkin bread with cream cheese. And the truth is one bite is real pleasure. But I'm not just eating one bite of something that tastes so delicious. And for me, previous to doing the work that I've done now to heal my relationship with overeating, I would have eaten that to the point where I couldn't eat anymore, right? Because it's so delicious and I only get it in the fall and, I better eat it now because F it, I've already started, so I might as well finish it. Like all of these thoughts that drive overeating would lead me to overeat that thing. That is not real pleasure. And I'd be telling myself, but it's so good. Just one more bite. I'm not going to get this again ever, right? Totally not true. But that is a false pleasure because after I've eaten it, I probably don't feel great because I've overeaten it. And even if I didn't totally overeat it, if I continue to eat the cake, every day or eating some kind of sugary treat every day over the holidays or whatever it is, I know that I am going to start a sugar habit, which is not real pleasure. It never feels good to feel like you need something sweet, right? Sweets are treats, and they are supposed to be treats, as in they are not something we have every single day, right? They're supposed to be kind of special. And so when we overdo it on those things, we've taken them out of the realm of real pleasure and we push them into false pleasure. Now they are habits. Now they are compulsions that we feel like we, have to get some. Now they feel irresistible. Here's how you know if your relationship with some kind of sweet treat has become problematic. You feel like you can't resist it. You feel like you have to white knuckle your way through being in the same room with the pumpkin cake and cream cheese frosting, right? When you feel like that food has power over you, then you know that you've moved way into the territory of a false pleasure. Real pleasure is being able to, and actually my husband and I just did this recently. We went to this new restaurant and they had homemade carrot cake, again, cream cheese frosting. And I was like, something told me about this restaurant that this was going to be amazing, amazing carrot cake. So we ordered a piece and y'all, I had 3 bites, exactly 3. But not because I was using willpower, not because I was sitting there white knuckling my way, watching my husband eat the rest of it. It's because I understand that real pleasure exists in the first 3 bites for me. And after that third bite, we move into the realm of what I call diminishing returns, where it's actually not pleasure anymore. If you're really paying attention, and I invite you to pay real attention, you don't have to do this with every dessert you eat over the holidays or every scoop of mashed potatoes, but just pick a couple and really pay attention. There is a point when you take a bite and you're getting real pleasure, and then you take the next bite, whatever number that bite is, and it's not quite as pleasureful as the bite was before it. That's where you know that's your point of diminishing return, and that's where it's time to put the fork down. Now, for most people, putting the fork down requires willpower. If you haven't really learned, there's a whole slew of tools that I teach in the Fempire so that you don't have to use willpower. But it may take some willpower for some of you to put the fork down at this point. If you really want to say goodbye to your relationship with willpower, again, talk to me about the Fempire. But for our purposes right now, here's what I want to offer to you. I want to offer to you, I want you to make a list. And I'm running a workshop with my clients this Saturday on Graceful end to holiday overeating, but we actually make a plan for everybody in that workshop. And one of the activities we'll be doing is to make a list of your real pleasures, like I shared with you just a few minutes ago. Then you'll start to make a list of your false pleasures. And for most of us, those false pleasures come in the form of food. They can also come in the form of relationships, but again, we'll talk about that next month. But they come in the form of food, and thinking that the more that I eat of this thing, the more pleasure I'm going to get from it, when really the opposite is true. And so when you start to own that truth, just that ownership in and of itself can start to shift your mindset. And it can start to shift the way that you are thinking about this food to begin with, so that you can, and here's the key, guys, this is it. This is where I'm coming in for the home run, so that you can be someone different with food. So the way that you have a graceful end to holiday overeating over the holidays is you actually build a new identity with food. And again, this is exactly the work that we do in the Fempire. But the point of it is when you are just a woman who is like me, I'm going to take 3 bites. And it might not always be 3. I might take 1 bite and decide that was enough or wasn't that good. I'm not going to have any more. But I very rarely go beyond that unless I specifically have planned to have some kind of special dessert. You just become a woman who doesn't overeat sweets, who doesn't overeat desserts, who doesn't overeat at the holidays, because she's totally aware of the fact that there's a point of diminishing return. And this is the biggest thing, she's totally committed to being a woman who doesn't settle for false pleasure, right? Like, if you really think about it, you guys, what you guys do, most of you in here are business owners. You take such pride in your service, in your product, in what you're offering the world. Take that same pride in yourself. Raise your standards, right? Become the woman who does not keep eating because she thinks it tastes good. You're beyond that. You're more elevated than that. You recognize it doesn't actually taste good after 3 bites, so I'm actually going to stop right there. And you're going to become the woman who does not settle for false pleasure, that you only accept real pleasure. Imagine how your life would be different, how much actual great pleasure you would have in your life if you really became a woman who didn't settle for false pleasure and only incorporated real pleasure. I also have you creating that list of 25 real pleasures because I want you to intentionally infuse pleasure into your life, real pleasure, so that your brain isn't starved for pleasure and the only option is the leftover lemon cake, right? Or is the leftover chocolates or whatever it is. That's what I invite you to do. I'm totally forgetting something important, but that's where I'm going to leave it all today, 33 minutes later. I hope you all have a beautiful holiday season. There will be lots more talk about holidays. I mean, it's only Halloween, but today in my mind kind of starts it off, right? With all the candy and stuff. So please let me know if I can support you in any way. That's what this group is here for. You can always DM me. You can always learn more about the Fempire by DMing me or just dropping in the chat here, Fempire, and we got your back. You're going to have the best holiday ever, and you're going to feel oh so good in your skin on January 1st. And you're going to have so much mental real estate. You're going to have time to focus on building your business and not on worrying about food and weight come 2025.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.